Okay, give me a second. All right. And then we're going to press that button over here. Rabbi Hajioff, this is going to take about a minute to get this up and running.
You do your thing, Rabbi.
I shall.
We're waiting for that. At some point, Johnny, you'll have to meet Rachel, who's on the call. She's moving to Houston soon, so you guys will have to connect.
Okay, for sure. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. All right, Rabbi Danny. You with me, Rabbi?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So now,
Sure.
it's mute. Okay. Okay, Rabbi Danny, you can now go to my profile page and go ahead and share. Okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to do a few quick shares and then we're ready to roll. 15 seconds.
And the toothpaste. Also, just squeeze out the last piece just in case you didn't have any food. In case you didn't have any food.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mashiach. Who is he and when is he coming? So we are very, very fortunate tonight, my friends, to have a very dear friend of mine and a mentor and someone that I really look up to. Rabbi Lawrence Hajioff is a very prominent outreach professional and rabbi and professor and author. He's written some incredible, incredible books. Jew Got Questions, Will Jew Marry Me? The Future, talking all about Mashiach. And that he's given us this time, especially back to back after just giving a class. He just told me right now, it's a big deal. So it's a true honor and a very, very big privilege that we have to have Rabbi Hajioff with us. I also want to make a huge shout out to a very close friend of mine and another mentor, Rabbi Danny Wolf of Denver. I am envious of the location of his organization. And that's why our trips are geared towards Colorado. Without further ado, Rabbi Hajioff, thank you so much for being here and take it away. It's all yours.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Rabbi Lawrence Hajioff, and the topic I was chosen this evening is a topic that I've been teaching for many years, about 15 years, 26-part course. I eventually wrote a book on it a couple of years ago, which did very well. But over the past year and now a few months, this topic has exploded in interest. And I'm speaking about it regularly to people all over the world. And that is the Messiah. What is the Jewish view of the Mashiach? And as we're going to see today, the Jewish view of Olam Haba, the future world. So this is going to be a series. Everyone just go on to mute if you don't mind. I'm going to do a share screen. I'm going to use notes and sources for this, if that's okay with you. And we're going to work our way through it. These sources will be available if you want. I'll be happy to have you email me after class. I'll send them to you. But we're going to go through a lot of information. I've got a lot of information to download upon you. We won't go through everything because this is a big topic. But I want to get through the bare essentials because what I want to show you is what we're seeing in the world today, a number of aspects of it, even this pandemic, which is infecting the world, and in a weird kind of way bringing us together, yet setting us apart, alone in our homes, there's what to talk about and very symbolic. Okay, fine. So the topic is Mashiach. Who is he, when is he coming, and what exactly does he want? The Talmud in the Book of Avodah Zarah, page 9, says, and it's actually based upon a number of sources. John, I need you when someone comes in just to mute them if they come in with their noise going, if you don't mind. Thank you. The world as we know it can only last for a maximum of 6,000 years. The world as we know it, as we refer to it, Olam Hazeh, can only last for a maximum of 6,000 years as it is. At that point, for sure, by 6,000 for sure, actually probably way before then, but I'll explain that a little bit later. According to the prophets, we'll see there's going to be another earlier time potentially, and most likely the way things are going. The world is going to revert to a very different consciousness, a higher level of reality that the world is going to prepare for, and that is called Yemot HaMashiach. So 6,000 actually is divided up into 3 groupings of 2,000 each. The first 2,000 years of world history, from Adam Arishon until about the time Abraham was born, we'll call the days of Tohu Vavohu, which means absolute chaos. And although it's a borrowed term for the beginning of creation, before there was any order in creation, it means the world was devoid of great leadership and to a degree, a lot of meaning. The second grouping of 2,000 are called Torah. That's the 2,000 years that the Torah was given in, and started with Abraham coming along and beginning the quest to disseminate ethical monotheism, which is basically a nice way of saying the belief in one God. The final 2,000, of which we're coming to the end of now in world history, very close to, are called Yemot HaMashiach, the days the Messiah can come and redeem the entire world. I'll explain exactly what that means. I promise you, you've got to stick with me in order to do that. This, by the way, is hinted at in the first verse of the Bible. In the first verse of the Torah, in Hebrew, it is Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemaim v'et haaretz. And that first verse has inside it the letter Aleph appearing 6 times. Now, the letter Aleph, when spelt out, is Aleph, Lamed, Fei. Okay? The letter Aleph, you spell out the word Aleph, that's where you do it. You can reread that word to spell Elef, which is 1,000. So the letter Aleph, which means 1, actually can be read as 1,000, which means, says the Maharal and many others, that the world is from the beginning 6,000, 6 Alephs, so 6,000, 6 Alephs, was the maximum amount of time the world would exist from Adam until the Messiah's arrival. And really the end of something is the end of that process. Okay. Now, what we're describing today, many people think is just like, I don't know, Kabbalah for some reason. I don't know why they think that. Or some cutesy idea. The Rambam Maimonides, who we're going to quote a lot. The reason we're going to quote the Rambam Maimonides a lot this evening is because the Rambam, it's going to be weird to hear this, is the only person in Jewish history who took the entire Torah, the entire Talmud, and made it into halakha. And within this book called the Mishnah Torah, which literally means the repetition of the Torah, there's a certain chapter. I'm not going to tell you where exactly right now, but I will tell you. Please mute the person, whoever it is. We're going to see that inside the book of the Mishnah Torah, at a certain chapter, he stops and says, let me give you the laws of the Messiah. The laws of Hilchot Mashiach. Now, nobody else has ever done that. He's the only person, which is pretty wild to think about it, in Jewish history, who gave us the laws of Mashiach. When I say the laws of Mashiach, I mean the things to look out for before the Messiah comes, what his job is, how to identify him when he comes, and his entire mission. And we're going to be seeing, it's actually a very short list, weirdly enough, and we're going to see that. Elsewhere, the Rambam gives us 13 principles of Jewish faith. 13 principles of Jewish faith. 13 things you, as a Jew, must believe in. And within this list is number 12 of 13. And number 12 is probably, if you've been to a Chabad house or you were singing at a concert as a kid, I'm sure you've sung or heard these words. Ani ma'amin be'emunah shenalema. I believe with an absolute faith. B'veit HaMashiach, with the arrival of the Messiah. And although he tarries and delays, even so I'm going to anticipate his arrival. Every single day. Now the Talmud in the Tractate of Shabbat says, when a person leaves this world, I die, they are asked 6 questions. One of the questions that every single person is asked is, did you anticipate daily the arrival of the Messiah? It's one of the things you actually want to think about every single day. So the Rambam isn't making this stuff up, right? We're going to see that the prophets and the early commentators and the later commentators are obsessed with this topic and have a lot to say about the philosophy of what the Messiah is all about. Okay? So what's just a side point I must mention. What I'm going to say is that 5 books of Moses does not mention the Messiah at all, or Olam Haba, the next world at all. Doesn't mention it. The prophets are chock-a-block full of references and descriptions. Actually, we even see in the book of Ezekiel an exact description of the 3rd and final temple, which we're going to see the Messiah is probably going to have to build himself or get built for him. Why does the Bible, the 5 books of Moses, not have within it references to Olam Haba, the next world, and the Messiah, which we're going to see is the beginning of the next world? Olam Haba begins with, the next world begins with Yemot HaMashiach, the arrival of the Messiah. And actually, the arrival of the Messiah is going to come right after a pre-Messianic era where the world is going to be set up for his arrival. So there are a number of reasons why it's not mentioned in the Torah itself, though it's hinted at in the Torah, quite explicitly hinted at, but it's not mentioned, as we say in Hebrew, mufurash, explicitly. And one of the reasons is because the Torah, which is the prophecy of Moses, actually, if you want to be quite specific about it, is all about what you need to do in this world. It's our instructions as a people, as the Jewish people, in this world. And that's why it talks about the mitzvot. All 613 mitzvot are found in the Torah, by the 5 books of Moses. And we're focusing on Hayom, what to do today. The next world is not part of that. The next world is not part of that. You'll see that the later prophets who describe it in a lot more detail, although there are, as we'll see, certain hints and references in the Bible itself. So what exactly is the Messiah all about? So the Rambam tells us, and this, of course, is based upon a lot of Jewish writings that he has culled together. One must believe that the Messiah will be a greater, better and greater, and more honorable than all the kings who have been before. So he's really telling us something very important, and that is kingship is going to return to the Jewish people. We, the Jewish people, resided, as you all know, I'm sure, in the land of Israel, with Jerusalem as our capital, which was set up by King David. Although Jerusalem was significant and prominent way before King David came along, he officially made it into the official, if you will, capital and epicenter of Jewish life for the Jewish people. That actually was the seat of kingship of kings. So we see that King Saul, the first ever king, came from the tribe of Benjamin. But after he lost his kingship, he gravitated towards King David, who was the first king for the tribe of Judah. So we're going to see that the Messiah, when it comes down to it, is really just the reintroduction of royalty and kingship to the Jewish people, to the land of Israel, and actually to the entire world. That does not mean, I must make an aside, I always get this, people are obsessed with this question. People always ask me, does this mean when the Messiah comes that everyone becomes Jewish? And the answer is emphatically no. No, the entire world does not become Jewish and does not need to become Jewish when the Messiah comes. A number of reasons. Number one, somebody's still got to buy retail. Right? It can't just all be wholesale buying. It's a joke, don't get offended. But as well as that, we, the Jewish people, don't have a monopoly on God. Right? God is the God of all people, of all history, no matter where they are. So we talk of the Messiah, we mean that he's going to come as a figurehead, as a leader. Now, religions are going to disappear. Right? We're going to see, says the Rambam elsewhere, and the prophets as well, all false religions are going to disappear. They won't be needed anymore. And everybody will be serving the one true God that the Jewish people serve right now. Okay, as we say at the end of Aleinu, V'yomahu yeh Hashem echad u'shmo echad. Now at that point, everyone in the synagogue is folding up their talits and getting ready to go to the Kiddush. But those are actually very important words. In those days, V'yomahu, in those days, yeh Hashem echad, God's name will be one, u'shmo echad. Meaning that right now he's one for us, the Jewish people, but at some point the entire world is going to know that there is one true, infinite, omnipotent God. And that's what we have to look forward to. So kingship is going to return, and that is based upon the prophecies from Moses until, that's the first and greatest prophet who wrote the Torah, until Malachi, who was the last of the prophets. And actually, without, most people didn't realize this, even religious people, we pray for the Messiah every single day, 3 times a day. Right? We say in the Shemona Esrei, Et Semach David Avdecha. May you, God, quickly bring your salvation to the Jewish people, and may we see your salvation come to us. And it's actually an agricultural metaphor. A lot of agricultural metaphors are used to describe the arrival of this king and kingship to the Jewish people, to Jerusalem, Israel, and the world. One of the reasons is the blossoming. Just like a seed is actually underground, is rotting underground, and slowly makes its way up, and there's a little shoot that comes up, and eventually a plant grows, and then the blossom, and then bang, you got a flower or a beautiful juicy piece of fruit. It turns around in a moment. 1 minute it's not there, next minute it is. So too, this whole redemption is a very slow and arduous process, and is going to culminate with the end of the Jewish people in Galut, in exile, and a final redemption, just like we were redeemed from Egypt, just like we were redeemed from Persia in the Purim story. Well, that's less of a story of redemption, more of survival, but definitely the Egypt version. So too, the Jewish people are going to be redeemed, and the entire Jewish people are going to return to our homeland, which we've been seeing for the past 50, 60 years, right, en masse eventually, and eventually we're all going to be living in the land of Israel. And in case you think there's no room in the land of Israel, there is plenty of room for every single Jew. And actually, biblical Israel is going to be much larger sideways up Syria and Jordan, Transjordan, than it is presently today. And this is something we have to look forward to. Okay, so what is the whole Jewish view of the Messiah? So we know it's a principle of our faith. We know that kingship is going to return. But who is this Mashiach character? So the prophet Isaiah, chapter 61, verse 1, describes the Messiah. And Rashi, Rabbi Lawrence Hajioff, who lived just over 1,000 years ago in Troy in France, he says the name Mashiach isn't actually his name. It's actually a reference and refers to leadership and greatness. This individual is going to be an incredible leader, and is going to be full of great powers. Okay? He's going to be a normal person of flesh and blood. He's going to be born. He's going to have parents. He's going to have challenges. He's going to get married and have kids. He's a regular individual, but extremely learned and going to have a very specific and powerful mission in this world, which eventually will culminate with him becoming a king. Just like King David became a king and King Solomon became a king, so too the Messiah will become a king in the land of Israel. Now the Talmud asks a very unusual question, and it says, what's the name of Mashiach? What's his name? Because we said Mashiach isn't his name. The word Mashiach literally means lasuach, to anoint. That's what the Mashiach actually means. It means to anoint. Who is anointing whom, where, and why? Well, in order for a king to become a king, the prophet, for example, the prophets Samuel, Shmuel, would take a horn of an animal. Horn in Hebrew is keren, which means power, which was significant that the person was now to be instilled and given great power, because kings had a lot of power. As Mel Brooks once said, it's good to be king. It was. But they were given a tremendous amount of power. They were the judge, the jury, and many times the executioner. He would take a horn, he would fill it with olive oil. Some of that olive oil actually came from the days of Moses, right? He actually crushed some olive oil, and they kept it in a vial, and they added a little bit. So we're connecting Moses, the first ever king of the Jewish people, to all future kings. And it was poured in Jerusalem, right, by the Gihon Spring. Actually, you can actually go visit there today, in the shape of a crown on the head of the future king. That's what it means. It's the anointing of an individual, a great individual, who becomes king of Israel. That's what the word Mashiach actually literally means, to anoint. which is to elevate, to separate, to distinguish this person in terms of their power and their leadership from everybody else. So the Talmud says, what's his real name? What's strange? What do you mean, what's his real name? I mean, maybe they're trying to locate the person by finding out his name. And the Talmud, even stranger than that, gives us an answer. And says, I'll tell you. Look at the 4 letters that make up the word Mashiach. Mem, Shin, Yud, Chet. And actually, each one of those 4 letters is a potential name of the Messiah. Mem stands for Menachem. Shin stands for Shiloh. Yud stands for Yonun. And Chet stands for Chanina. Okay, 4 very nice names. Menachem, Yonun, Chanina, and Shiloh. But what does that even mean? So one opinion is, and this is a minority opinion, that actually you'll know you found the Messiah when he has one of these 4 names. But pretty much everyone else disagrees and says, no. You see, a person's Hebrew name, and I'm talking to you as well, my friends who are listening today, a person's Hebrew name is more than just a name, a handle, something they're called, right, by their parents at birth and then all their friends for the rest of their lives. Your Hebrew name is your essence. It describes your mission in this world, okay? Which is why the Arizal says, one of the great Kabbalists from a few hundred years ago, when a person is born, their parents don't actually name them. Their parents don't actually name them because a parent can't define the essence of a child. Only God can. So they're actually given a minor form of prophecy when it comes to naming them. And that is also very much why we name, it's a very strong custom to name a child after a grandparent or the time of year, whether a Jewish holiday. And that's significant because they're kind of taking in that person's continuing mission. Let me explain to you like this. The Hebrew word for a soul is a neshama. A neshama. The middle letters of neshama are shem, which means name, because your name defines your soul mission. For example, Moses, Moshe. Who gave him that name? Bat Paro, the daughter of Pharaoh. Why? Mishitu Minamayim. She dragged him out of the water. He actually had 10 other names. But the name we know him, actually his real name was Tov. Some say Tovia. But the name Moshe was given to him because his mission was, just like she pulled him out of the water, was to draw the Jewish people out of Egypt. So his mission was encoded in his name. So too, for everyone watching, you have a Hebrew name, hopefully. If you don't, you'll get one. That defines your essence. And so does the Mashiach. So the name Menachem means he's going to be Menachemas. He's going to console the Jewish people after thousands of years of galut, of exile. And Shin stands for Shiloh, which is Shiloh, a gift to him. He's giving a gift to the world. And people are going to bring him gifts, just like they brought King Solomon, his great-great-great-grandfather, gifts many years before him. And his name is Yanun. Yanun means plentiful. There's going to be a population explosion before the Mashiach comes. And his name is Chanina. He's going to have tremendous chen. Chen means grace, very graceful individual. Everyone is going to love him. One of the stories that all of you probably read about just under a month ago is the story of Purim. The Purim story is actually, it's going to sound weird, but a microcosm of the entire messianic drama and revelation. There's a lot of hints in the Purim story that can be found in the messianic story as well. I'll give you just one example of this. We know that Esther, Hamalka, Queen Esther, did not reveal her origins. This allowed her to be loved by everybody because everyone said, oh, she's from my nation, oh, she's Egyptian, or she's a Moabite, or she's Midian. But she didn't reveal who she actually was. Actually, had she revealed it, she probably would have been killed by Haman as a Jewess. So better she kept her mouth shut, which she did. Okay? So too, the Messiah's origins are a mystery to us. His background is a mystery to us, so much so that if you look at this Gemara, we just spoke about the names, every one of the schools that existed at that time saw the name of their rabbi in the Messiah, right? The people who thought his name was Shiloh, their rabbi was Rabbi Shila. And the opinion of the people who said his name was Yanun, there was Rabbi Yanai. They saw their own leader in the Messiah. What does this mean? It's a deep idea, but listen carefully. This means that when the Messiah comes, this is probably one of the greatest miracles that will happen when he does come, everyone is going to agree that he's the Messiah. Everyone is going to anoint him as a king. We're all going to look up to him. Actually, the entire world is. And we're all going to feel like we're connected to him. He's like from our community. You know, when I was a kid, we used to have this Jewish youth group I was a member of, called B'nai Akiva. They would say, what kind of a yarmulke will the Messiah wear? Will it be a kippah sruga, nick yarmulke, a strimal, a fez, a turban, a black yelva yarmulke? And the answer is, we don't care. It's irrelevant. Everyone is going to see themselves and their culture and their connection to Jewish life in this person, just like they did when it came to Esther HaMalka before. Okay. So let's get a little bit of biographical information about him, but also about his mission. So during the Messianic era, right, which is the prelude to the arrival of the Messiah, kingship's going to return to the Jewish people, says the Rambam, in the land of Israel. The Messiah will be a king, will establish his place of leadership in Zion, Sion. Now, the word Zion was a term, I believe, that was coined by King David. And although maybe it was actually used before, but he was the one who really used that term. Eventually, it came to refer to all the land of Israel. And now, if you're a lover of Israel, you're a Zionist. The word Zion, though, you should know, is related, says the Abarnel, to another Hebrew word, which is Mutsuyan. Mutsuyan. Mutsuyan means remarkable. If you are a true lover of Israel and Zion, you see the land of Israel as a remarkable place, right? And he's going to be a remarkable king. His fame will spread and reach the ends of the earth, even more so than during King Solomon's reign. You know that King Solomon's reign is considered one of the highest points of Jewish history. You know, it was so great when King Solomon was king that we actually didn't even allow converts to join us. Why? Because we were doing so well, we were skeptical of their motivations for becoming Jewish. So they actually blocked, for a certain period of King Solomon's reign, people converted to Judaism. That's how good it was. This individual, the Messiah, this final king, King Solomon's great-great-great-great-great-grandson, which he's going to have to prove, by the way. He's going to have to prove somehow. I'll give you a couple of possible ways he's going to do that a little bit later, hopefully, if you have time. He's going to have to prove that he is a direct descendant of King Solomon, okay, and King David, because that's King Solomon's father. And he's going to become extremely famous throughout the entire world. And by the way, the Messiah isn't just coming to help the Jewish people, as we said. He's here to fix the entire world. And the entire world is going to be elevated through this process. However, there's going to have to be a change in the world, as we're going to see, before the Messiah comes. But the non-Jews as well are going to stream, says the Rambam. Now, this is unusual, by the way, just a side point. If you have a look on the sheets, in the laws of Teshuvah, in the laws of repentance, the Rambam stops and starts to discuss the Messiah again. Just stop for a second if you don't mind. What's he doing over there? Most of the laws that Rambam describes of the Messiah, he's going to do that in the laws of kings. Hilchot Malachim, which makes sense, because the Messiah is going to be a king. So what better place to describe the future Messiah than the laws of kings? And there's many laws that apply to kings in the past and obviously in the future. And then suddenly he's talking about the laws of Teshuvah repentance. He's like, oh, by the way, let's talk about the Messiah once again. Why does he do that? So the answer to this question is really, really important. I wanted to focus on this. And you've got to look at me and open your heads for a second. The prophet Isaiah, chapter 60, I think verse 20 or 22, but at the end of chapter 60, makes a very important statement. He says that the final redemption will come in two possible times, Be'ito or Achishena. Be'ito, Achishena. Those are the two words the prophet Isaiah gives. Now listen carefully. We're left field, but I'm going to bring it back, I promise you. Be'ito means the Messiah will come in his time. In his time. Well, what's that? Well, we already discussed that. By the 6,000th year, just like there are 6 days of the week and you go into Shabbat, so too there are 6,000 years, and then we go into the world called Olam Haba. That is actually the world that's called Yom Shekol Shabbat. That is all Shabbat. The next world. Okay, the next world and Shabbat are synonymous. That's what we're going to see. One of the best ways to expedite the arrival of the Messiah is by keeping Shabbat. That's why you'll see all the Elamei rabbis and everyone's like pushing Shabbat, because Shabbat is really going to be the catalyst, because it's a microcosm of the next world and has the power to bring it. Anyway, so we have two words, Be'ito and Achishena. Said the prophet Isaiah, the Messiah will come. It's a principle of our faith. Any positive prophecy by the prophets must occur. Any negative prophecy does not need to occur. Right? We could do teshuvah and eliminate it. Okay? We could do repentance and any negative prophecy. For example, Jonah, the prophet, was told to go to Nineveh in modern day Iraq, tell the people God's going to destroy them all. And he walked into town and said, God's going to destroy you all. And they're like, uh-oh, we're in trouble. They repented. God didn't destroy them. Hello? Then isn't Jonah a false prophet? The answer is no. Because any negative prophecy from any prophet anywhere in history, his prophecy, if it's negative, does not need to occur. Because we could do teshuvah, repentance, give tzedakah, pray, whatever's involved, and God can wipe away the evil decree, like we say on Yom Kippur. But a positive prophecy must occur. This is one of those positive prophecies. Be'ito, the Messiah must come by the 6,000th year. What's Achishena? So Achishena is what I call an inner time. An inner time. And unlike all the previous exiles the Jewish people have been through, of which we've been through 4, this last one is unique, that we have the power to bring the Messiah earlier. See, the other exiles we were in, the clock was ticking. Beep, beep, boop, boop. For example, the Persian exile, right? We were in Persia. That's the whole Purim story. We were actually in the capital of Persia, which was Great Neck. Joking, was Shushan. And the clock is ticking. 70 years comes to an end. We all go and we survive and we get out. This one we're in right now is not like that at all. We have the power through certain actions, I mean many actions, but certain specific ones, one I already mentioned, Shabbat, to expedite the arrival of the Messiah. These 2 words, Be'ito Achishena, of Isaiah the prophet, chapter 60, verse 22, whatever it is, are not only different times, they're also different ways. Many of you may have heard the Messiah is going to arrive like a poor person riding on a donkey. That is actually a prophecy. But it doesn't have to be that way. That's the Be'ito version, right? The non-miraculous. We don't want that. We want the other, more exciting, miraculous version, because we Jews love miracles, as we're going to talk about a lot on Passover. And we want the Achishena version. We want the Messiah to come early, and we want it to be a miraculous redemption for our people. Because the more miracles and the fancier it is, the more of a Kiddush Hashem, the more of a sanctification of God's name it actually is. So, although we believe he's going to come by the 6,000th, we believe that any moment, the Messiah can come, which means, by the way, ergo, there is a potential Messiah that must exist at every single moment, who is, as we say in America, on deck, ready to go, to get up to bat and get the job done. There must be, if he can come at any moment. And as we mentioned, this is not just the Messiah of the Jewish, but this is the entire world is going to enjoy and be potentially part of this messianic revelation and Olam Haba. Okay? So the Messiah. So why are we in the laws of repentance? Because we do repentance, specifically Shabbat, and as a side point, if we don't get to it, the mitzvah we do with each other. How we treat each other. Mitzvah, as we say in Hebrew, ben adam lechaveiro, has a tremendous potential to bring the Messiah earlier. Because the temple, second temple in Jerusalem, was destroyed because of sinat chinam, baseless hatred, specifically Lashon Hara. And so what's going to rebuild the third temple, which we're going to see is one of the main features of the Messiah's mission and job, and proof that he is the Messiah, actually. We're going to see what the Rambam's going to say. So much so is that part of who he actually is, that we have to love each other, which is the opposite of hating each other, in order to speed up his arrival. Does that make sense? So if hatred and Lashon Hara destroy the temple, and so love and speaking well of each other is going to rebuild the temple. As a side point, one of the punishments or fixes for people who spoke Lashon Hara was that they got tzarat, a certain skin blemish, which was a sign that they had spoken Lashon Hara, and they had to sit in quarantine for a while to think about their actions. Right? The idea of quarantine and sitting alone by yourself outside the camp, not coming to contact with any people, is actually a very ancient and biblical, to be fair, Jewish tradition that was exclusive of people who were speaking Lashon Hara, who spoke bad about other people, spoke gossip, and destroyed other people with their words. Okay, which of course is between us and each other. Okay, back to our Messiah character. He has to be a king descended from King David. He was going to be wiser than King Solomon. He's going to have prophecy. Now, this is also very, very, very important. Listen very well. Prophecy is going to return to the Jewish people. I know you're thinking the Jewish people are no longer a prophet organization, but I'm bummed. I'll be here all night. Enjoy the chicken. But prophecy is going to return. Actually, prophecy is going to return before the revelation of the Mashiach of the Messiah. One of the obvious proofs, which all of you know whether you realize it or not, is that Elijah the prophet, Elijah the prophet, last name prophet, middle name the, is going to come Lifnei Bayom, before, to announce the arrival of the Messiah. So we know that prophecy is going to exist. Actually, not just Elijah. We're going to see that prophecy is going to return to the entire Jewish people. It's going to come back again. That's actually can be found in the book of Joel. And the prophet Joel tells us that you and your elderly and the children and husbands and wives, men and women, everyone's going to have prophecy, just like the Jewish people. All that prophecy when we went through the Yam Suf, when we went through the Red Sea after 7 days after leaving Egypt, okay? Even the lowest handmaid during that experience had a level of prophecy that was equal to Yechezkel ben Buzi. Ezekiel the Jebusite had that level of prophecy and was able to see amazing things. So too is going to return. And the Messiah there, oh, by the way, that's what we're going to invite as a side point. I've got to mention it. We have Pesach coming next week. One of the things that all of you are going to do is going to open your front door and you're going to welcome in Elijah the prophet. What exactly is Elijah the prophet doing at your Pesach Seder table? You're not going to invite him into your sukkah, as far as I know. I mean, you can if you want to, right? But you're not going to invite him to Yom Kippur or to Purim or to Sukkot or Shavuot. But you are going to invite him to your Pesach Seder. Why? Why are we all inviting Elijah the prophet to our Pesach Seder? And why are we pouring him a cup of wine, not into the biggest cup, and filling it up? And then we're not even going to drink it. Because we want Elijah the prophet to look at our Seder table, show him that we're celebrating the redemption of the Jewish people from Egypt, and saying, hey, Eliyahu, Elijah, here we are celebrating the first ever redemption of the Jewish people from Egypt. Announce the arrival of the Messiah so that we can finally celebrate the ultimate and final redemption of the Jewish people in the entire world. And then finally, we'll be able to drink this fifth and last cup of wine that we've been waiting to drink for thousands of years. The first 4 cups we drink are to celebrate the 4 exiles and the 4 languages of redemption. And this last cup, the biggest cup, because it's the biggest revelation, is waiting to come at the end. And so we're persuading him to kick in the Achishena version, which is the earlier version, and the more miraculous one. And that's what we want to happen. And so he's going to be a prophet. Now, the Rambam is pretty unique. He actually believes that the level of prophecy of the Messiah will be, in Hebrew, he calls it Karov LaMoshe, close to Moses, but not as great as Moses. Because the prophecy of Moses, it's a principle of our faith that he actually lists elsewhere, that the prophecy of Moses is the greatest prophecy that ever has existed, past, present, or future. And even the Messiah is not going to match his prophecy. And what is the prophecy of Moses? I already told you, it's the 5 books of Moses where the mitzvah comes from, and that he can't do. Okay? And not only is he going to instruct the Jewish people, he's going to instruct the Jewish people and the entire world. As the prophet Isaiah, chapter 2, verse 2-3 says, at the end of days, which is what we're describing, right? Olam Haba is going to begin with the arrival of the Messiah. He's going to get the ball rolling, which is going to end up with all the other good stuff. The mountain of God's house, i.e. the temple in Jerusalem, shall be set over all other mountains and lifted high above the hills, and all the nations are going to come streaming to it. Many shall come and say, come, let us go up to God's mountain, to the house of Israel's God. He, the Messiah, will teach us his way, and we will walk in his paths. The Messiah is going to be a spiritual leader for the entire world. And everyone is going to be part of this redemption, not just the Jewish people, okay? Which is a very beautiful and important concept, okay? I don't know how long I have. I got a lot more to tell you. Rabbi Uzan, you can let me know if I have overstepped my time, or I just have a little bit more to share with you. You know what? Let's jump to this. Let's jump to the checklist of the Rambam. to ascertain a little bit about the Messiah and what his mission actually entails. So number one, says the Rambam, the Messiah, must come from Mibet David. He's got to be a direct descendant of King David. Now, how are we going to establish that? Well, it used to be, and actually still is to this day. I actually have a student of mine at Yeshiva University. Her family has in its possession what's called a Sefer Yuchsin, a book of genealogy, which lists the genealogy of everyone in the family all the way back to, I believe, Adam Harishon, right? Adam, the first man. These books, by the way, were prevalent. Many got destroyed during the Holocaust, and when people had to escape from the Middle East after the creation of the State of Israel in 1948, these books were lost, but many of them had it. Or maybe it's going to be something more, which I believe, something more genetic, right? Genetics, this whole 23andMe thing, right? Which I and my wife did because I'm obsessed with this stuff. We're starting to home in quite well and on a greater level all the time as to people's genealogy. Interestingly, if you can trace your lineage back to the Maharal of Prague, which my wife's family can do, the Maharal had a tradition that he came from Rashi, and Rashi had a tradition that he came from King David. So there are various signposts, if you will, along the way that can connect you. But he's going to have to prove it conclusively. Okay, he has come from the house of King David. Okay, number two, Hoger b'Torah. He's going to have to know a lot of Torah. He's not going to be an ignoramus. Now, I've got to mention right now, if you don't mind, this may sound obvious. The Messiah has to be Jewish. Okay, he has to be Jewish, and from the tribe of Judah, Yehuda, where kingship has been for thousands of years. I mention this because since I have many videos online on YouTube on this topic in a lot more detail, and I wrote a book on it, shameless plug, by the way, right, the future. There's no shame anymore. I'll just plug it. It's available on Amazon. I get a lot of emails and comments. By the way, many people write to me telling me that they are the Messiah. Many of them. A couple of years ago, I got a phone call, just when the book came out actually, of a guy who called me. It was like 3 a.m. Usually I don't answer the phone 3 a.m. because my phone doesn't usually go 3 a.m, but I answered the phone and there was a guy there. And he says, "Are you Rabbi Hajioff?" I said, "Yes." And he says, "I want to tell you that I'm actually sitting here next to the Messiah and he wants to talk with you." I got excited. I mean, I didn't really, I knew it was complete nonsense. And I said, "Where are you?" He says, "I'm in India." I said, "Is the person next to you Jewish?" And he said, "No." I said, "Then he's not the Messiah." Okay? He's going to have to be Jewish from the tribe of King David. He has to know Torah. I hung up, by the way. It was 3 a.m. Give me a break. V'osek b'mitzvot keDavid aviv. He's got to be involved in mitzvot, because a person could be very learned in Torah, know their Bible or even their Talmud, right, and not be observant of Torah mitzvot. Says the Rambam, no. He's got to know Torah, be a Talmud Chacham. He's got to do mitzvot, written and oral mitzvot. Number 4, V'yikov kol Yisrael lech ba'al chazek badka. None of that. He's going to be I'm going to say a one man, but he may have a troop behind him of bringing all Jewish people back to God. He's going to be a charismatic person, we said. He's going to be a leader. He's not going to just sit by himself in a room, right, discussing things and sounding like, "Hello, I'm the Messiah." It's not how it's going to work, right? He's going to be known. He's going to be famous. His fame is going to spread very quickly, which today can happen in moments, as we all know. And he's going to bring people back. Number 5 gets a little bit interesting. V'ilachem milchamot Hashem. He's going to be involved in the wars of God. Now, when I was a kid, when they taught us this, I went to a very religious yeshiva, they said these wars of the Messiah are going to be spiritual wars. And they may be. But if you look at the prophets, there's definitely a lot written about actual wars that are going to be taking place in the land of Israel, specifically around Jerusalem. The nature of these wars, we're not sure about. They're called Gog and Magog. Some say, as I mentioned in my book, this is the war between the Jews and the Muslims who live in Israel. Some say it's actually not to do with the Jews at all. It's actually the Muslims, the Christians are going to fight, right? The Jews are going to stand by. And what? There's many different opinions. No one is too sure exactly how, when, and where it's going to happen. But the Messiah somehow will be involved in these wars. And by the way, these wars don't even need to happen because they're negative prophecies. And no negative prophecy actually needs to occur. Says the Rambam. These 5 It could be you found the Messiah. However, you need the final three to get it really done. And number 6 is, if he fights these wars and wins, okay, that means he's got to survive. If he's dead, he's not the Messiah. He may have been a potential Messiah. He may have been a great person, but he's not the final redeemer of the world and the Jewish people. And if he wins these wars, Ubana Migdash Bimkomo. Now, my friends, it gets interesting. The Messiah is going to have to build the third and final temple. Now, that's slightly problematic. Number one, because although the Jewish people, since 1967, have full control over Har HaBayit, right, the location that the third temple is going to be built, there is a mosque and Al-Quds up there. So right now, right now, you're not even allowed to pray on Temple Mount as a Jew. If you do, you are ushered away and probably arrested. But that's his job. He's going to have to build the temple. Bim Komo, says the Rambam. And that's an interesting. Bim Komo means in its place. What a strange thing to say. Where else could you build a temple? Well, actually, anywhere. You build it in Tel Aviv. Here's your temple. Haifa, right? Elat, no one's going to say anything. Well, maybe the Jews will, but no one else will. It means exactly in its place. And one of the jobs of the Messiah, and actually this is one of the reasons he has a very specific type of prophecy. I can't go into it now. It's a whole chapter in of itself. But he has a certain sense of smell that he's going to be able to use in order to figure out exactly where everything in the temple goes. Right? He's going to be like the Aaron, the ark that had the tablets of the Torah, goes over here, and then his back goes over here, and the Kior and the menorah. He's going to fix exactly, everything's going to go exactly into its place. And finally, the bit that we're seeing in our day and age, the Kibes Nitchei Israel, he's going to have to gather together the Jewish people. Hare Zeh Mashiach Bavada. If he does all that, does it all, whoop, my friends, you found your Messiah. Now, this final piece, this gathering of the Jewish people back to the land of Israel, is not only a central feature of the Messiah, it's actually a prelude to the Messiah, because you're going to have kingship return. You can't be a king unless you've got a country and a people, right? You aren't a king unless you have people. Therefore, even before the Messiah's arrival, say the commentators, the Rambam especially, we're going to see a mass return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel. One other really, really important point. Listen very well, my friends. If you hear this one last piece, it was worth my mother having me. Check this out. In order to have prophecy, you need two things. Number one, you need the prophet in the land of Israel. The prophet has to be in the land of Israel, giving his prophecy. Okay? As most prophets were. There are a couple of exceptions. We mentioned one already. Jonah went to Nineveh, which is outside of Israel, because he had to go and speak to the non-Jewish people in Nineveh and make them do repentance, which they actually did. But even he was given his prophecy in the land of Israel. So the prophet has to be in the land of Israel because the land itself has its own power that the prophet was able to channel. Number two, and this is really important, and we're going to update, this is like so 2020. In order to have prophecy, you need to have the majority of the Jewish people residing in the land of Israel. You need to have 50.0000001% of the Jewish people in the land of Israel in order to have prophecy. Why? Because the prophet doesn't just speak, he needed to channel the power of the people who were with him and who were around him. That's exactly what the prophet was doing. For the first time in 2,000 years of Jewish history, something which our grandparents, forget even our parents probably never dreamt of, we're at the tipping point for the first time of the Jewish people in the diaspora about to be less than the Jewish people in the land of Israel. It's close. I mean, there's different studies and how you define who a Jew is. There's a lot more that's involved in this, right? Observant, we'll leave that aside. My friends, we're at a tipping point, and that is messianic in and of itself. Rabbi Uzan, how am I doing for time? Give me a time frame here. I could go on for another 5 hours. I don't have a social life. I really don't.
So it's yeah, here in Houston it's 8:50. We thought it would be an hour. So if you
great. Fantastic. No problem. Let me just finish off with a few beautiful, just to tie this together. And if you want, it's up to you. I'm happy to take questions and open up the chat, which I'm not able to see right now because I'm in my sheets. Okay? Okay. So we see that Isaiah the prophet speaks about the return of the, by the way, these sheets are available to you. You can get my email. I'll actually put it into the chat box afterwards. You can email me. Happy to send you these source sheets afterwards as well. I want to talk about why the Messiah has not come already and what we need to do in order to expedite the arrival of the Messiah. So let's just jump to that because that's all the cool, interesting stuff. Says the Sfat, I've already mentioned this already, that we can kick in this concept of Achishana, the expediting of the Messiah's arrival, by doing the opposite of what destroyed the second temple. So Sinat Chinam destroyed the second temple. What can therefore rebuild the third temple, which is one of the things the Messiah is going to have to do, and it's actually proof that he is the Messiah, and that is to love each other. Avat Yisrael. Okay? The mitzvot between each other. All mitzvot are important and special in God's eyes, but those ones specifically are very, very important, and they are what can generate, right, a certain merit. Now, if you think that's easy, you're wrong. The Chavetz Chaim says in his writings, which I think I have somewhere in these sheets, if not, I can get them for you, and he says, if you have one community in the entire world, in all of Jewish history, not every Jew, that's way too much, but just one community that really has shalom, real peace inside it, the Messiah would come just like that. Boop! Geherifying in the blink of an eye, which means that in all of Jewish history, throughout the entire world, we've never had real shalom, even in one community. We can't even get one community, you know? Think about your local synagogue. We can't even agree. The window open, window closed. Yes, rabbi, no rabbi. AC on, AC off. We can't even seem to get that together. If we just were to fix that, which is why the Talmud says, rather disappointingly, that any generation that does not rebuild the temple, it's as though they destroyed it. Now, don't blame me. I didn't destroy it. The answer is, well, since you didn't rebuild it, the reasons that destroyed originally are still, to some degree, destroying it now. Okay? What are some signs that we are close? So check this out. This is my favorite part, and this is the punchline, because I do believe that we are very, very close. Number one, King David, right, the Messiah's great-great-great-great-grandfather, says in the Book of Psalms that he edited and wrote much of. There are 150 Psalms, and he wrote much of them and edited the rest. He says, Bona Yerushalayim Hashem, God is the builder of Jerusalem, Nidche Yisrael Yikanes. He's going to gather together the Jewish people. These are seemingly two very different ideas. God builds Jerusalem, and the Jewish people are going to be gathered together. Says the commentators, why are these two very different things mentioned? Because at the end of days, when you see Jerusalem being built and really being built up, that it's almost, says Rashi, impossible to walk around the streets of Jerusalem because it's so squishy and so tight. When you see that, you know the Messiah's arrival is close, which makes sense. Because if you're going to be a king in your capital, you want the capital to be nice and full of people. And therefore, God is laying the groundwork. And my friends, you go back 100 years, you could barely give a piece of Jerusalem away, right? And now, every time I go, right, I go, 2-3 times a year. And I'm like, was that building here before? You know that feeling? You're like, come on. What? I'm sure that was not here a couple of months ago. All right? We can't even afford it. It's like Manhattan prices. Okay? This is a wonderful thing. It's a sign that the Messiah's arrival is imminent. God, once again, is, first of all, he's changing society. And this pandemic, I truly believe, is just one of the ways that he's changing our focus and breaking down us and the world in order to build us up with this final redemption. The second thing is the Balaturim and other commentators say, at the end of days, we're going to see that the Arab prominence over us, the Jewish people, is going to fall. Oh, by the way, as a side point, I missed out one of the most key parts. The Rambam is, I don't like using this expression, but he's a rationalist. There's kind of mystics in the Jewish world, for example, the Ramban, Nachmanides, And then there are the rationalists, if you will, the non-Kabbalists, like the Ramban Maimonides, okay? So the Ramban, for example, Nachmanides describes reincarnation in detail, and the Rambam doesn't mention it at all, which means it's an optional area of Jewish thought. This is not, by the way. So the Rambam is fairly unique in his writings when he says that the world, after the Messiah comes, Olam Kamin Hagolach, is going to carry on the way it is. The main difference, this is really important, I should have said this before, I apologize, I'm so sorry, do forgive me. The main difference from before the Messiah comes to after the Messiah comes is no more war. That's the main difference. And there's going to be no more wars and no more racism and no more anti-Semitism and all the resources, think about this, that we've been spending over the past tens, hundreds and thousands of years on war machinery, gone. And you all know the famous words of the prophet Isaiah, returning our swords into plowshares, right? These are metaphors, says the Rambam, for the fact that there's been no more wars among us. We're going to be peaceful and we'll all be able to just get on with our lives in peace, truth, and tranquility with the knowledge of God. Just like the sea, says the prophet Isaiah, covers the ocean bed, so too the knowledge of God is going to be all over the world. And that's the Rambam. Now, the Rambam, the Kabbalists, they go a little bit further and they say that a completely new miraculous world is going to be here. There's going to be no more evil inclination, no more wars, and no more evil inclination to even drive us to wars or to make mistakes. All gone. That's all finished. One of the signs the Messiah is actually arriving, says the Balaturim and others as well. This is written in a number of places, based upon a verse of the Torah, which you can see in the notes, but I can't go into it now, is that when Yishmael, who is the ancestor of the Arab world, is up, the Jews are down, and we're going to see a redressing of that balance. And actually, the Arizal mentions, in the words of Rav Chaim Vital, that at the end of days, there's going to be a fifth exile called the exile of Yishmael. I'm so sorry. The exile of Yishmael, which is going to end up with the safety, let's put it this way, of the Jewish people in the land of Israel and not being part of the anti-Semitism that we're seeing there to this very day. Okay? So I've come to the end of my time. I've covered a lot. Just one last thing. I'm so sorry. One of the other signs the Messiah is very close is a blossoming of fruit, say a number of the prophets, of fruit in the land of Israel. And one of the reasons is so that we will return to Israel, we have delicious, juicy fruit to eat. But the other reality is so that the world can say, how do these amazing Jews turn desert into a beautiful, lush paradise that we see in the land of Israel today? Even the Negev, even the dry part of south of Israel is blossoming so beautifully, and we are learning to irrigate it. This is a sign to the prophets that the Messiah is coming. I'm done. Dayenu. I hope you've enjoyed it, my friends. I hope you've gleaned some new information. I hope I've removed some myths and misconceptions that you've had about the Messiah. And I hope you realize that we're getting close to that amazing and awesome time and the return of our people to our homeland, the land of Israel. Thank you very much, Rabbi Wolf and Rabbi Uzan, for allowing me to address your friends and your students.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Hajioff.
Thank you, Rabbi.
I have someone from Israel that's watching live on Facebook that reached out and wanted to know, in relation to Mashiach's arrival, when will deceased relatives return?
Okay, so that's a very famous question. That whole deceased relative thing is actually another topic which the prophets don't talk about in great detail. It's called Tchiyat HaMetim, resurrection of the dead. That is actually the 13th and final principle of the Rambam. 12 was Mashiach, 13 is the resurrection of the dead. The answer to that question is, nobody knows. The prophet says, Ain lo ra'ah. No one saw when that's going to happen. No one is even sure of when that final resurrection is going to happen. Some say, in my book, I gave the various versions. One opinion is right after the Messiah comes. Some say many years later, maybe 60, maybe 70, maybe 1,000 years later. Some say right after and much later as well. So really, it's different opinions, and you can go with anyone that you want, but that's much later. And we're not too sure exactly when or how that's going to happen. I'll just include my email so people will be in touch with me if they wish. Any other questions? I'm happy to take if you have time.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Rabbi Hajioff?
Wow.
All right.
Either I was very clear or no one knew what the heck I was talking about.